talking about a workshop that they have coming up at the Vista Del Mar Child and Family Services. It's coming up on Sunday, February 8th, 2015. The title of it is Interventions for Challenging Behaviors of Autism. We mentioned before the break that they've got a star-studded list of presenters for this event. It's free. You do need to RSVP at losangeles at autismspeaks.org. So let's talk a little bit, because you and I share something in common, that we are both moms of kids on the autism spectrum. And I want to, I asked beforehand if it was okay if I mentioned that. I always ask our guests that, but I think it's important that people know that you know where our viewers are coming from. You have not one, but two children on the spectrum.
Yes.
Which I can't even fathom. And you're relatively new to this community. And yet here you are already moving and shaking and making a difference for your kids and for everybody else's kids. So this is a dynamic woman sitting here. So I say to you, interventions for challenging behaviors of autism, could there be a more important topic for our families? For me, it starts and ends with this. And yet so many families, I don't know if you've encountered this, so many families will meet and they've gotten used to a behavior. They've gotten used to something. They say, well, my child tantrums, as if that's just how it's going to be forever. There's some sort of acceptance that people come to, well, my child hits, or he bites, or he throws things, or she throws things, or, she won't sleep. All of these different things that happen, and it's sort of like a forced psychosis, I think, for the parents sometimes, that we get so tired and so beaten down that we think this is what the rest of our lives is going to be. So maybe talk a little bit about the inspiration for doing this and what you hope to accomplish.
Well, as you said, you hit a lot of very key points. As parents, those behaviors can become overwhelming. We don't know where to start. We don't know what to do. And sometimes accessibility to be able to participate is extremely difficult. Yeah. So we've made this a very short but very planned out workshop, and we're looking at it from an occupational therapist standpoint, from a speech and language pathologist standpoint. We have a medical doctor, a psychologist, and so we're trying to cover the whole gamut of what those behaviors can look like.
And you've got a behaviorist there too. You've got a BCBA. So I love that it is that scope of all the people that would be involved if you had the ideal circumstances to give you support about interventions that work. And I think that that's really what's key here, is that, people need to understand that there are interventions that are effective, that we can turn challenging behavior around. So you've put together almost a dream team of people to support. So for a family that's thinking about coming to this, what kinds of topics do you think, will there be an opportunity for them to ask specific questions, or are they going to, segment it into the different things? How will this work?
So there will be a very short PowerPoint presentation. The presenters are completely willing to stay after and speak to parents and answer questions. Sometimes, there are some really specific things that parents, want to know. Can this behavior be addressed? Yeah. What can I do to help my child? Who can I turn to? And so, we're very fortunate that we have really, excellent speakers that are experts in their field that are prepared to answer questions.
Yeah. And it's being moderated by Mark Woodsmall, who is an amazing gentleman. Yes. I don't know how we have not managed to have him on the show, and we need to have him on the show as soon as we can. But I know that he will do a wonderful job of making sure that the parents get to, be heard in what they want to hear about specifically. But I think too, looking back, I don't know from your perspective as a parent, but I remember the moment in which I thought, oh my gosh, we can change the way things are going, and how empowering that was. And I didn't necessarily know, I still don't necessarily know how to change every challenging behavior that may come up in my son's life, but that empowerment of knowing I can change something was huge. Have you experienced that in your life?
Absolutely. There were not too many behaviors because, my children are verbal. They're they're higher functioning, but the level of support and care and the journey is all the same.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate that I was able to utilize a lot of community resources because they received their diagnosis so late and it was challenging, and they've only been with the regional center for a year. But I've been in this field for about 10 years now.
Okay.
And so I was able to tie into those generic supports to be able to help. But definitely working with my psychologist, working with a one-on-one in school, just the structure was critical for both of my children. It still is.
And I know you're really committed to helping all of our kids, but with a special consideration for our families that are, what we call our underserved populations, people who maybe English isn't the first language, whether it's that they speak Spanish or something else. But we have areas in our community that are terribly underserved. Do you feel like, I feel like this is going a long way to help, but at this moment in time, do you feel like those underserved populations understand how much can be accomplished by getting involved in those services, or do we still have work to be done there?
There is a lot of work to be done, and you're absolutely right. Working with the low-income minorities of color is something that I have been working on for the past 6 years. And because I'm one of these families, I'm a minority, and I have a lot of challenges with my children, but there is a lot of work to be done. And I'm really happy to share that Autism Speaks has really focused a lot of efforts to be able to make more of an effort to be in these communities of color.
Yeah.
So we are expanding to be able to be in South LA, in Northeast LA, in East LA, Rancho Cucamonga, San Bernardino. We are trying to cover all of the areas where families need this critical information.
Yeah,
and we also have the autism response team that are bilingual operators that are there to help families based on their geographical area. So resources in their community is what we tie them into.
And I so love that you're here in Southern California making such a big difference, but I want our families that are all across the world to know that, it doesn't just stop there, that Autism Speaks and a lot of organizations are working on helping to get to those families, because for me, sometimes I feel like the callousness with which if we turn away, it's like throwing away a child, throwing away their entire life. We know how important those early supports are, those early services. It just couldn't be more crucial. And if the family doesn't know, we've all experienced that thing of, I didn't know about that, and the grief that you feel when you find out, I didn't know about that when. I can't even imagine for families who, get to a point with children who are engaging in regular challenging behavior, who've had no functional communication, to find out that there were services available that could have helped them if they had only known, the grief that would come with that. We have to prevent that, and it's all of our job. It's absolutely all of us have to stand up and speak for everyone who does not have a voice for themselves. So I'm glad that you're at the helm of that here in Southern California and leading the way and making a difference. And I think that this workshop is a great idea. We love our friends at Vista Del Mar Child and Family Services. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful event, and I love that it's free. Now, there is no child care, though. Is that correct?
There is not. And I want to share that we've had this workshop in the past. We did it last year.
Okay.
And we had an overwhelming response to it. Everyone who attended was, really happy. They learned a lot. And so we are going to be able to bring this workshop in other areas of Los Angeles.
Okay.
So we'll let you know where those areas will be, or you can check back with us. Yeah.
It's important because it's hope. It's a day of hope, and it's a day of empowerment, because if you know what to do to change a challenging behavior and flip the equation and make it a positive, then you can apply that to other areas of your life with this individual. It's amazing. It really turns the whole equation around.